Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Volts. I'm a personal finance teacher at St. Clair High School in St. Clair, Michigan, and I'm going to give you some tips on how you can implement the activity Analyze Should They File a Tax Return. The activity is located in the Taxes unit. It's actually the first activity listed, and before I do this activity, I make sure that students have kind of a base knowledge on taxes. So a wonderful way to start your Taxes unit is by using this Move Your Tax Dollars in Action, where students learn how their federal tax dollars are being spent. And then another one that's great for introducing taxes is Compare Tax Forms and Their Purpose. That activity has them understand what a W-4 is versus a W-2 versus a 1099. Once they have the base knowledge of all of that tax information, then I use this activity, which is, should they be filing a tax refund? The way that I incorporate this activity is I use the student activity packet for this lesson. So you can find it in the year lessons, the full year lessons. Right here, there's a full lesson on, do I need to file a tax refund? And I will tell you that on a traditional basis, I don't use the student activity packets as far as like passing them out to my students and they complete them on their own. I more use the student activity packets as a way to design my lesson. So I'll take those activities and those articles and those videos and all those wonderful resources that NGPF has put together, and I use them to then design how I'm going to teach it and how I'm going to like structure my lesson. But in this example, I actually have students complete the student activity packet. So I have them learn some of the information about filing refunds and what standard deduction is and what a dependent is through the student activity packet, and then we come back together as a class to do the activity, Analyze Should They File a Tax Refund. So taking you to the student activity packet down here, again, there's a lot of different resources there. There's a discussion prompt, there's a video, there's an article, all that students can gain the knowledge so then they can decide and do the activity on whether the characters in the activity should file a tax refund. So one way that I do this, and I think one way that you can implement the student activity packets, is I print off the actual packet and then I created a slide deck that looks a little something like this. So I'll put the slide deck on Google Classroom, and then the students have the worksheet student activity packet, but they're able to view the videos. I've linked them to the resources, and they can learn on their own about all the requirements of what is a dependent, what is earned income versus unearned income. So they're learning all of that independently. And for me, this student activity packet part usually takes one class period, which is about 55 minutes for me. So students will have that. And then I lead into the activity. So I tell students, you got to have this background knowledge, learning it on your own, working through these resources, and then we're going to do an activity together that's going to embed or incorporate or use that knowledge that you just learned. So once they've done that, then I go to the activity, which is Analyze Should They File a Tax Return. And in this activity, they're going to be given 10 different characters or 10 different scenarios. And they're going to decide if the person is legally required to file a tax return, and or maybe they're not legally required, but should they be filing a tax return? So there's lots of teacher tips embedded in this lesson or in this activity that you can read. And there's some slides that the students will need to access. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. The slides have each character on it. So once you open up these slides, which you're seeing on my screen, we have different characters. Like we have Tim, and we have Christian, and we have Jessica, and we have all these different characters that have different scenarios as far as their income and how much money they earned. And what the students will do, and again, there's tons of ideas on how you can modify this or how you can use it in your classroom. I'm just giving you one way of how I do it. And ultimately what the students will do is they'll complete this chart on the last page. So again, lots of different ways you could do this. You could take these slides and display them like on your projector or smartboard and as a class go through them. So for example, Tim is the first character. He's 16. He's a high school student. He lives with his parents and he earned $5,200 at his part-time job. And students will decide, can Tim be claimed as a dependent? Is Tim legally required to file a tax return? And if not, should he file a tax return? And again, they're using the knowledge from that lesson that I showed you that's available in that full year course. So again, the way I embed it is I don't display it. You could display it. I think that's one way. You could have students work through it as a group or think, pair, share, kind of with a partner. How I've used this, and it allows students to kind of move about the room, is I take these slides and I print them out. And then I'm going to show you a few pictures of how I embedded it. I tape the slides all around my classroom. So then I ask students to get up and go around to each of the characters, and they have the worksheet in their hand. So they have this worksheet right here they're carrying around, and they can answer the questions based on the slides that are around the room. So you can see I just kind of tape them around my classroom, and they can move around with a partner, by themselves, however they want, and they'll note, okay, based on the information, can they be claimed as a dependent? Do they legally have to file a tax return? And if not, should they? And they move about and do that. And then when they're done, they come back to their seats, and then we'll go over some of those different characters and some of the information. So that's how I incorporate this activity. I would say this activity, just the character part, takes students maybe about 15, 20 minutes, maybe about 20 minutes with some discussion added in at the end, but they need that content at the beginning, however you want to teach it, before they can do the activity. So this is a great one that you can implement in many different ways to teach students the legal requirements of filing a tax return, and then maybe you're not legally required, but you definitely should file your taxes.